They discovered my guys were undercover, and we don't know how.
So you want to recruit us?
This is a story about being undercover. And what happens when you go deep undercover. Particularly if you're doing an operation in a foreign country where your badge doesn't count and where you can't have a SWAT team surveilling you and people are not in contact. You really are out on the edge.
Why do I get the feeling everybody knows we're here 15 blocks out?
Because everybody knows we're here 15 blocks out.
It's the allure of doing that undercover work and what happens to you when you're deep in that role of that fabricated identity.
Sonny Burnett, it's my partner Ricardo.
And what does that sound like? To me, it sounds like an actor on a stage. Of you're connecting with your audience and they're zoned into you and you're zoned into them and you know you're golden glowing and scoring like a champ.
Nice day.
The school of Michael Mann, there's always going to be that where you get a chance to meet the person.
Now we got to talk money. Because you got to remember, we're got money up front and we don't got nothing, you know what I'm saying?
Meet that undercover agent, meet that cab driver, meet whatever it is, in order for you to extract something from them.
These roles are filled by the real deal. You know, 2 of Yarrow's bodyguards work for Homeland Security. You know, they do the undercover work that Crockett and Tubbs are doing, you know, so it's just an amazing resource to have, like, right there. How I know if you're any good at this shit?
What's that?
You have to act, talk, and walk like a bad guy.
We didn't come down here to audition for business. Business auditions for us.
You have to convince the bad guy that you are not a cop, because that's the first thing they're gonna look for, is whether you're a cop or you're informant.
Don't waste our motherfucking time.
So you have to adapt yourself and change yourself to play whatever role you're trying to play.
The best cover, the best fabricated identity is yourself.
You want us to be telling you about our shit? You can't find out on your own. Why do I not buy that?
But it's kind of a supra you.
You with DEA, the feed, what's up?
It's all the impulses of your personality with the volume turned up and the inhibitions turned off.
How many rolls you get? How many more can we get?
I try to stay close to script, close to what I know from my life, or I did working undercover, so that you don't make those mistakes later on, so that you're consistent. And that's the answer, consistency.
Well, my dad never got lucky. So he started trucking. Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of it. But we were close.
You tell them you're from Kentucky, and one day you say it was Kansas. They said, wait a minute, you told me, because these guys are looking too.
Jose, what is it?
I don't like the Americans.
Why?
Too good at what they do.
I got a double hit. There's another plane there.
Ghost.
One live, one plane.
Prepare before they go undercover in the same way an actor prepares in terms of knowing everything about the person that they're pretending to be and isolating themselves and focusing in.
Michael was like, any resources or any way that I can help you, I'm there for you. For instance, we flew to New York, Elizabeth and I, and we worked with the DEA, and they took us out on drugs, on a real drug bust.
There was a group in New York who was scheduled to purchase, I believe, cocaine, and we'd actually gone out to cover that meet, and they came out with us to surveil and see the actual hand-to-hand take place.
I guess people see them coming, all of a sudden you hear people screaming, cops, 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 and then it just happened so fast.
We actually concocted a scenario where Colin Farrell would be under the impression he was actually doing a real deal.
They got me. Jesus, talk about punked. Lorenzo had a deal going that day where he had dealt with these guys for about 6 months. And he had bought a certain amount of coke off them, and then the loads had gotten bigger and bigger.
And we set up this scenario where we were going to do a delivery of 20 kilos of cocaine.
I said I'd love to be there. I'd love to see it go down.
We basically told him, no, you just stay in the background. Right. This deal's already been done. we set him up, kind of. We told him, look, it's already been done. Nothing's going to happen.
He said to his boss, Lorenzo, he's like, I think Colin's good for it. I think he can do it. I mean, he's caught on really quick, and he won't say anything. I'll take care of it. These guys know him. He'll be fine, you know. Do you want to do it? And I was asking, of course, my ego's way too big, and I have far too much pride to say no. So I said, sure. I said, I'm in. Fuck it.
Mike, you ready?
Yeah.
You ready, Jesus? Yeah. Let's go.
So we went to the warehouse, and then the shit hits the fan.
The scenario was set that when we arrived with the dope, we'd say, well, wait a minute, I've never seen these individuals before, you must be cops, and we'd create that chaos.
One of the guys grabs his gun, doesn't point it, just grabs it out of his pants. I'll never forget it as long as I fucking live. I don't know how I didn't pass the fuck out.
Yeah, how about you? Now you say it. Oh, do I look like a fucking cop? Yeah.
At one point, rips his shirt open and he goes, look, I'm not a cop. I don't have no wires. And I thought, that's pretty good. It threw me off.
It was very scary. It was very, very, very scary, because for all intents and purposes, this was it was such a good setup. And I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't sleep. It kept flashing. The guy that went for his gun, his face, because he kept staring at me. After it all cooled down, he just sat in a chair and just stared at me for like 10 fucking minutes.
Good job, man. Good job, brother. Mike, keep the good. Yeah, be good. How's it feel, brother?
Oh, fuck, man. I didn't know what the fuck. And I couldn't sleep that night. I called Lorenzo's boss at about 2 o'clock in the morning. He was in bed with his wife and just had to talk to him about it for about 10 minutes. He felt so bad. They weren't going to tell me the next day. He came around to the hotel room with Michael and told me it was all set up. They got me good.
When it does happen, you're very grateful that you are prepared. You're very grateful for all of the training. Once you are in a situation, all of the training, everything that you've been taught automatically just takes over.
They have backstories they've created, fabricated identities where they just have created an absolute alternate existence.
Did you run them?
Yes.
Did they check out?
Yes.
There were more than 100 people who did a lot of very important work that nobody ever saw.
FBI Miami.
You cannot artificially create a background without that kind of support, especially in today's day and age with databases that are so readily available to private investigators that might be working for drug traffickers. It's very easy for them to pressure test background to see whether or not you are who you say you are.
And action! Action! Action!
Gong Li plays a woman who moves money and launders money. And we were fortunate enough to be able to make available an extremely high-level guy who, when he was in federal law enforcement, had run a money laundering scam on Pablo Escobar's organization. And the work he did was part of the evidence with which we indicted Noriega.
Amazing, he was about to get married. It was part of his story. And so he called up all the guys that he wanted to arrest, and he said to them, I'm having a bachelor party at this place at this time. And they all came along. And they herded them all into the place where the bachelor party was taking place, and they arrested them all.
The wedding invitation read, we invite you to be with us as we begin our new life together. But it was really an invitation to jail for 85 people, several of them executives with an international bank and holding company.
The trafficking organizations, the big ones, run their businesses in smart, sophisticated ways, and they buy the best they can get in terms of their security, their counter-intel, their signal interception.
The jamming the phones.
This is the type of stuff CIA does.
Yeah, what's it doing on a dope deal?
The Medellin cartel, their gross receipts were roughly $160 million a month. That can buy a lot of tech support, a lot of lawyers, a lot of private investigators, and it does.
It's not about one commodity, cocaine, in one geographical location, Colombia. That's yesterday's newspaper.
Montoya is the new news, globalized.
It's about globalized forms of trafficking.
Colombian coke NH, arms from the Ukraine, E from Holland, pirated software from China into Brazil.
If you're dealing in major narcotics anywhere in the country, you're often dealing with men that act as businessmen.
These people, if they were born in any other situation, would run Fortune 500 companies. They would be the heads of states. They would be governors, lawyers, but they just happen to be in this.
Excuse me, because I am very busy. I have many things to do, so this will be brief, yes?
From the Medellin cartel, they had some brilliant, highly educated individuals at the upper echelons of command and control.
You know, I've gone to in these meetings, like you're sitting in an incredible, luxurious hotel, spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a drink tab, you know, eating the best foods, driving in the best cars, and then you leave and you get in your, you know, your Lumina or your, you know, your 1973 Volkswagen and have to kickstart. And you're thinking, man, I just left, you know, I just went from a king to nothing, but that's it. It's what it is.
And in the last case that I worked, my partner ultimately did get drawn to the other side and wound up compromising my identity, which could have had a very, very bad outcome in it. But ultimately we were able to piece that all together, and he wound up serving an 11-year prison sentence.
At the end of the day, it has to be your personal moral beliefs and your character that prevent you from crossing over.
There's nothing in this world, there's no monetary amount out there that's going to make me compromise and hurt my family.
You know, there is a temptation, but the day you think that way is the day you have to walk away from the
You know, they were living on the edge. I mean, they were living on the edge. We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 takes.
Collins.
I mean, they get one shot, you know, and the downside of a bad take for them isn't a shift in direction or mood for the scene. It's a bullet in the head.
Cut. What's the one? You told me you were drowning.
Why do people do this undercover work? What's the draw? Why do they put themselves at such risk?
I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know.
There's a hype. There's an elevated experience. And that's what really motivates them. It's that moment when you know that they believe you 100%, that you have got them, that you have put over this fabricated identity, this fabricated scenario, and you're living it, and you're feeling it, and they're buying it.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Oh Lord, There's things you can't begin to artificially create. There's nothing that's as exciting to me as the real texture of it, the real people on the street. Audiences sense the kind of truth-telling style of the environment that the action is happening in. One of my ambitions with a picture like this to really go exploring into some of these areas.
So if you want to go off someplace, it's got to be, now this group is going to go off. We have to tell Chris, he's got to assign some people with you, and that's the only way it goes. We don't just wander around.
One of the exciting things about working with Michael, he chooses real locations all the time. You're dealing with an environment that can often surprise you. Whether it's the light, whether it's a dramatic moment with the sky, or some interior or some sort of background action that would not have happened in a controlled backlot situation.
He's a famous dancer, right?
Michael Mann, that's his thing. Finding places that, you know, that aren't even on the map.
Our low angle, that's pretty good. I don't want to get boned by our crew.
Michael's all about making the experience and the environment, you know, as real as he possibly can, you know? He's all about why fake it when you can do it for real.
What I want you to do is stay here and shoot the ship because it's got the kind of saturated chroma right now in this light that we're looking to get. There's some variations in exposure. Because what we're looking for is maximum chromatic saturation.
Go to these places like Ciudad del Este, it's incredibly stimulating, it's incredibly exciting.
tri-border area where Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina meet. It's such a unique part of the world.
How many, Mike? How many you want? Get them all out here milling around in the center just like
We have people who are from the Middle East, Lebanese and Syrians, a lot of ethnic Chinese. The president of the country speaks Guarani, which is the indigenous language. And everybody speaks 2 and 3 languages. And so it's a really up-to-the-moment kind of place with this crazy kind of laissez-faire commerce that's going on, selling anything and everything.
Ciudad del Este exists basically on the gray market world and counterfeiting of goods. If you want something cheap, you can attain the latest movie that has just been released in the United States, the newest watch that Rolex has put on the market, and anything else you want.
I bought Collateral for $2. It was a DVD.
Everything's packed in styrofoam, whether it's a new camera, a television, a stereo, computer.
And at night, like at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, it's like everything's thrown out the window. And you get this pile along the street of styrofoam, at least 6 feet tall.
It's Jose. Jose, what is it?
In general, in locations, what you want to do is get the local people out. You want to put in your own extras and you want to shoot. What Michael wants to do is actually shoot our person on a motorcycle going through live traffic.
That is tough on the filmmaking process because you don't have the control, you don't have the resources when you're out on a location.
All right, guys, here we go. Stop.
You've got to be pretty determined to get a crew to these places. Clearly, Michael is determined to do that.
I mean, he finds places where I'm just like, Jesus, where the fuck did you find this place, you know? Because it's not in any book. You can't Google, you know, some of the neighborhoods we've been in.
We shot a lot of stuff in the Dominican Republic, and in some areas that took a lot of social engineering to be able to bring a film company in and shoot responsibly and shoot safely. There are people who are struggling to get by every day. And so when you go into an area like that, you have to move in with the people. You have to understand their structures. So if one group controls a certain area, you have to be working with that group. And you don't just mindlessly kind of import people from another neighborhood into this neighborhood.
How you doing? Oh, how you doing, Michael? I had an idea. I saw a guy standing here. Just have a foot up like this. Yeah. So that's what you're doing. They're walking the street. You'll be kind of on the sidewalk. Okay. I need to shoot right now. You better fucking nail this. Here we go. Ready? And action. Let's go.
Why do I get the feeling everybody knows we're here 15 blocks out?
Because everybody knows we're here 15 blocks out.
You're in the environment and you react accordingly and you're very aware and you're very conscious of everything that's happening around you, in front of you, behind you, left, right, you know.
It's kind of a globalized city. There's a huge Haitian population, and then there's just a lot of people with a lot of money from Brazil, from Venezuela, from Colombia.
I met a cab driver, a Haitian cab driver, about 3 weeks ago, who sort of introduced me to the whole world of Little Haiti.
We here, we in the hood, all access granted in the hood. We're gonna take y'all through step by step, you know. This is a Mummy with the restaurant in it. This is the exclusive. So this is like a 5-star restaurant. Check out the fish. We love fish.
From the food, the music, the cultural stuff, the religious aspects of it.
That's the generation about the Haitian.
So whatever voodoo you have to make, you have to call them first.
Miami has so evolved. It's much more muscular. It seems to have elevated itself up into the most sensual part of Miami, which is up into the air. The storm systems, the clouds, the dramatic weather. You're kind of at one with nature in a very, almost tactile way.
It's a place where there are probably about 25 condominiums being built at any one time and presented in the sort of these glass tower sort of imagery with, you know, water views and blue sky, and reach up high enough you'll eventually see the water, but you end up so far from the ground that you just lose touch.
He obviously goes to these sort of, you know, really swank, fantastic places, and the girls are still beautiful and the cars are still fast, but he doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the underbelly of Miami.
Miami has that allure. Very, very attractive and very engaging and very alluring and very sensual and also very dangerous. And things that you can't see are right around the corner.
Thank you so much. And for our next movie, we're going to go to even more exotic places. This movie is Rap. Miami Vice is Rap.